can spread a bunch of different things. They have viruses that they're immune to, while other animals might not be. And we're seeing that with the rhinovirus. We're seeing that with Chitrad's disease. You know, because people released African quad frogs, and it just spread wildfire around the world, wiping out amphibians at incredible rates. And again, that's the irresponsible end of pet ownership. And you know, some people, it's not intentional. They don't think it's a bad thing. They think it's a good thing. And you know, and is it their fault? And, you know, yes, but if they don't know. And that's where I try to come in and do that education piece. And this is why I say Maine woods, Maine waters, Maine animals, not exotics. Or domestics, too. I mean, not just exotic animals. I don't care. Don't release your cat. It's a domestic animal. It doesn't belong outside. But that's a whole different topic, and we won't get into it. Because somebody's going to sit there and email me going, how dare you tell me not to let my cat outside? It's natural, whatever. Anyhow, sorry, I digress.
No, I agree with you on that one, but we'll.
Yeah, well, reptile people do, but anyhow, yeah, we're not. But anyhow, domestic, you know, it's our responsibility to take care of them. It's our responsibility to properly rehome them, and that's why I take in what I can. You know, and that's why I also take in stuff that, you know, even if I don't keep these animals, like I said, I take in a lot of different things. And like
that pigeon you just talked about.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mind it. Hey, Amy. Amy. Can you come here for a moment?
Mr. Drew, you were saying?
Yeah.
I was gonna say Mr. Drew is all donation based mostly, other than with shows and stuff. And volunteer work.
Dad wants you.
Could you do me a favor, run to Katie's kitchen, bring a box with you? Something about a pigeon. And stuff.
Alright.
And
no random conversations.
Yeah, and box it up so I can see it, or at least see where it's at. If it's still there, it might be gone. I don't think it's as bad as they make it sound, but anyhow. But if it's there, then we'll take it in and we'll figure it out.
Alright.
And maybe you guys can see it.
Maybe.
But yeah, so you do a lot of that stuff. Lost my train of thought. Bear with me.
Always.
What were we talking about? Before the
donation basis.
Donation based and volunteer based, which is a big reason why I try and come here. And even though I breed my own mealworms and stuff, you don't want to take too many out of your breeding colony, or you're not going to be able to breed enough to feed them. So it's like, well, and I like to rotate variety through my animals: mealworms, superworms, roaches. It helps them stay healthy. It helps them get the urge to hunt more. So I like to. Why go to the pet store and spend $9 for 50 of them when I can come to you and make sure?
Well, you probably spend less, but not only that, they'll live longer.
They'll live longer, and it's helping you take care of these animals and continue to.
Well, that's pretty much what it does.
Take in these animals that some people might not understand. There's nowhere else to put them, like you said. The Humane Societies don't take them. No. Humane Society is going to look at you like you have 3 heads if you walk in with a 12-foot snake you don't want anymore.
Unfortunately, a lot of the Humane Societies, whether it's Waterville, Augusta, Brunswick, here in Androscoggin, they pretty much know me well enough. And direct them. But even Maine Wildlife Park, you know, and of course Warden Services or IF&W do the same thing. You know, I don't know how many. Maine Wildlife Park told me to call you. Okay. They had somebody call me in regards to a flying squirrel that was bred in captivity, but the guy didn't have permits, and they're like, "Oh, call Mr. Drew, he'll handle." I'm like, "It's not. Why would you call me?" Yeah, but anyhow, that's how it goes.
And with that being said, like this pigeon that you might end up looking at, you don't turn anything down, even if it's only for a day or two, and you find another place like Avian Haven or.
Yeah, we'll move it on. Whether it's Avian Haven or Misfits Rehab or Saco, Saco River Wildlife, whoever. I mean, whoever's in the Center for Wildlife, if they've got if somebody calls me, I know where to send people.
Yeah.
I guess is really what it comes down to, because I have people calling me all the time about a bird they found, and a lot of times I can even tell them what to do without having to do anything. It's like, all right, just leave it there, and but here's who to contact should you need, or
And with the warden service, you were just talking about people call you all the time. Some of you guys might have seen the news article about those tarantulas and stuff you got in. The warden center brought you. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Because that's a perfect example, in my opinion, on what you do and how the state works with you.
Yeah, so it was Friday afternoon. I got a phone call from the state biologist, the one who did my original inspection and gave me my exhibitor's permit, and said, "Hey, it's Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock. What are you doing?" And I said, "Okay, what's up?" When they call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, something's up, because they like to be home by 5. They're clocking out at 5. So I'm like, "What's up?" And Scott, and he's like, "Well, this is a scenario. A motel owner in Norway, Maine, had a tenant who was long-term staying in his place, but hadn't paid, this is what I was told, hadn't paid his room fees, and he hadn't seen him, and so he didn't know, I guess, it's common for people to ditch. If they can't afford to pay, they just leave. And so he didn't know, I hadn't seen the guy, so he figured he'd go in the room and check out to see if he was still there, or if he had to clean the room, or what he had to do. And the guy walked into, and they were not like all over the place. Some people I was like, "Oh, they're running around." No, he said 50 tarantulas. It was actually about 36 and a few scorpions. But they were all in their little enclosures. I mean, the guy who had them took care of them. He had them. But the state, he says, could you take them in till we figure out what's going to happen? And also, could you take them in and identify them and let us know which ones he has that are legal and which ones are not? Which he had 2 legal species. We only have 3 in Maine. He had 2 of the 3.
And the rest were not.
So, yeah, there was like 36 with the scorpions, 38. And so there was, basically 36 that were not legal in Maine. He had no permits for. And he tried to tell so what happened was the motel owner called the police, and the police were like, They called the wardens, and the wardens were like, let's let the biologist let him figure out what to do with this, and then they called me. In the meantime, the guy showed back up by the time the wardens were there. And he's like, "What's going on?" At this point he knew, it wasn't much he could do. He didn't try to, he wasn't a jerk about things. He was actually very pleasant. But he did try to tell the warden, apparently, because the warden was on the phone with me a couple times when they were there. Like, "Okay, I'm going to shoot off," because he had some names on the containers. So he shot off a few names, and the first one he shot off, I'm like, "Oh, that's a Goliath bird eater." "No, that's not legal in Maine." Then he reaches another name like that's an emperor scorpion. That's not legal in Maine. So, he's like, all right, so he gave me 3 of them. All 3 were illegal without permits, or he didn't have permits. So I guess the guy then tried to tell the warden that, all the tarantulas were actually subspecies of the 3 that were legal. And so the warden explained this to me, and I'm like, no, the 3 species are very specific. I mean,
can't go any lower.
They're not, and the Latin names are not going to change on the subspecies. It's just going to have, an extra third name, and in this case no matter what, the names you've given me are not legal, so they're not even subspecies, they're individual species. And I guess he said, well, and he also got them before the laws changed, and it's like, no, because
never had tarantulas.
Back like in the 70s, there was there was no real laws like we have now. Now the unrestricted list is there, so it's been a long time, at least since the 80s. This has been in place. So he didn't have them prior to the 80s. He didn't have them in the 70s. The guy's not even that old, I don't think. And we got our pigeon. So anyhow, the tarantula, the warden packed them up in boxes with the guy's help apparently. They came to me, I identified all of them, except for a few I didn't identify, I wasn't certain, but I knew they weren't legal. They weren't the 3 legal ones, that's all I needed to know. If it's not one of the 3, it's illegal. And so we took them in, and now they're with us as part of our display. We lost a few, and it was partially, I think, because they drove from Norway, Maine to here in the back of a pickup truck. They were boxed, but still, there's wind and temperature drops and stuff, so we had those issues. We lost a few, but we still have quite a few of them, and they're here that we use now in education. Nicely displayed and light up. So, and that's what we do. And the guy is going to court or has been. I don't know what came of it. I haven't heard one way or the other. So I don't know if he's gone yet or hasn't gone yet. The state is like, well, can you be able to hold on to him until we figure it out? And I'm like, I can hold on to him indefinite, and I can. It's not doing a lot of work, and I can use him in education, or I can hold on to him. I can hold on to him and relocate him out of state, but you'll have to wait till after COVID. Yeah. So either way, I got to hold on to him. So we get these tarantulas, and that's one of the things we do. I mean, the 2 axolotls that are over there in that tank, out of the 3 that are in there, 2 came from university, not university, Unity College. Unity College. Because again, somebody had them in the dorms. They weren't supposed to have them. They didn't have the permits. The warden said, all right, and the school said, can we keep them for education? Well, the school was done with them, and they would send them to me because my permits cover it. So, that's kind of what we do. We just kind of we're dumped for the state. We don't get any funding for it. A lot of people ask that. We get funding, and I always say, the HHS can't take care of children. What makes you think IF&W is going to give me money to take care of exotics? It doesn't happen. So everything, the moving out of state, the taking them in, the feeding, the caring is out of my pocket. Yeah. And we're not a nonprofit, so we don't get grants and funding that way.
That's just that's a big reason of why I donate to you too, and
appreciate it.
I will be, like I said, for his address, I'll put it in the video for Happy Meal and everything for you guys. But if you guys need anything feeder-wise, come to Drew. You're gonna get good bugs. Weird to say, but you're gonna get bugs that might survive more than a couple days if you don't feed them off immediately. Yeah, definitely. And by might, I mean definitely will. I still have a couple roaches from you that are like 3 weeks since I've got from you.
Yeah, and we gut load our stuff, so when you get it, even if you're feeding, you're gut loaded already. It's not like, you go to Petco, they pre-bag a lot of them, and they're eating egg crating. Or they might have that little green cricket cube in there that's like bone dry, and they're not even eating it. Ours we hand count, so same thing like superworms and mealworms. A lot of you go to the store, you open up the lid, and you go, okay, that's all right. You go home, you dump them out. Half of them are dead. Well, you're not going to get that because why? We hand count them. So if you say I want 50 mealworms, you're getting 50. We're counting out 50 live mealworms. And I did that on purpose. My wife was like, well, maybe we could pre-bag or, pre-cup some of that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Because we can't see what's in those cups afterwards. Exactly. Once we put the brand in and stuff like that, we can't see it. I don't want to know they're alive when we're giving it to them. And this eliminates that, well, you sold me dead worms, or my container was dead, or, nope, it's been a question. They were all alive.
And that's the other good thing. You mentioned gut loading, and for some of you that might not know, gut loading is, and you can correct me if I say this in a weird way, it's the process of, you want to feed your feeders, essentially. What your feeders are eating is what's making it into your animal. So if your feeders are eating like crap, essentially your animal's eating like crap.
If the crickets are eating cardboard egg crating
your
in the bag,
cardboard
and that's the thing I try to explain to people. I actually feed my insects as well as I feed any other animal. Some people's pets don't even eat as well as my insects. I mean, between the fresh vegetables and fruits. I mean, I got fruit flies swarming this place because why we're feeding so much produce to the insects that it makes all the difference in the world. So.
And yeah, that's like I said, that's a big thing, and that's why your gut loading is good. I can come here and not have to worry. If it's like, oh, I'm in a pinch because I don't want to feed out of my colony, so I don't go, oh, yeah, well, now I don't have a colony anymore because I had to feed out of it. It's like, I'll go to Drew, I'll buy some roaches, and I'll just, here you go, feed everyone, without being like, well, I have to wait another 3 days, so I know that they're fed. Because the nutrition that your bugs have is the nutrition that your animal gets.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just think, well, I gave it a roach.
Crap in, crap out.
Well, yes, a roach is better nutritionally than, say, a waxworm, but what has the roach been eating? Because whatever it's eating will either cause that nutrition to go up or go down.
And the other thing is we're working very hard on breeding our own stuff. I mean, I've been breeding mealworms and fruit flies and stuff for a long time, but like now, in roaches I've been doing, but now we're getting into the crickets. It's starting to breed those. I mean, we're still ordering them, but we have a different species of cricket, so it's not the same that Petco and PetSmart have. Ours live longer and much hardier.
Smell less.
And smell a lot less. Oh my goodness, that was one reason I wasn't breeding crickets, was the smell. And right now, the smell I smell is usually the superworm mealworm combos. Yeah. But the crickets, no smell whatsoever. So they're pretty hardy, and so you get the cutest little babies. I show people these little tiny babies that are in this little container here just to show they're so tiny.
True pinheads.
They're true, yeah. They're so small.
Which are good for, like, the poison dart frogs you have.
Poison dart frogs, newborn chameleons, salamanders, small new froglets, whatever. There's a lot of things. Some people use them for fish, things like that. So.
And yeah, lost my train of thought again.
Needs a frame rush.
I'll admit it. Half the time I am. With you doing all this, you had mentioned you started with fish and all that. Is there anything you would tell anyone that wanted to get in? Not necessarily to this, but just into the hobby in general. Everyone starts in a different place, and my big thing that I tell a lot of people, even people that are starting breeding, I'm in a lot of the Facebook groups and stuff, and I'll see older breeders that have been around for a while talking down to other breeders, and my opinion is everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah.
No one knows everything. Even the people that have been around forever, like you said, you still learn things.
Oh, yeah.
You've been doing this for a long time, and you're still learning. There's always something new to learn about the animals that we keep. Yeah. And your ability to take that and use it to your advantage is going to be whether you survive or not. Because if you're going to be stuck in your old ways, you're not going to evolve with the times.
Well, one of the things that I suggest is staying off Facebook groups or social media groups. Because of that, you get a lot of conflict, a lot of drama that and then you start second guessing yourself and wondering if you're doing something right or wrong. What I do recommend is reading, not just reading online, because again, the internet made everybody geniuses, and you know what? It might work for them, but it might not work for you. And so if you go online and you're reading somebody, say read 10 items, read 10 articles on that animal. Find 10 things that whether it's from breeders, whatever information, and then if you find like 9 of them say the same thing, that's pretty much probably fact, and if 7 say something out of, and 3 don't agree, well, it's still pretty good odds, and then you can start saying, well, a lot of them are all saying this and that, well, then it's uncertain, but the key thing is kind of putting it all together. But what I ultimately tell people to do is just books. Read lots of books, because books have to be fact-checked. They have to be checked by an editor. They can't publish, I shouldn't say they can't, but they're not supposed to publish stuff that's not true. And they've got references in there. I could sit there and put online, hold the guinea pig by its tails, then its eyes will fall out. And, because it came from Mr. Drew, it's fact. And people will share it, and none of it's true. First of all, guinea pigs don't have tails. And second of all, eyes are attached by optic nerves, and there's muscles, and so it just can't happen. But because it came from what they consider a reputable source, it must be true. And so that's what I don't like about online. So with a book, you can verify it, and in the back, it'll say, you know, all the reference sources they got the information from, and you can do further fact checking on that, where they got their information from, and that's what I like about books. Also with books, you can read, like here upstairs, I have a library, and I have some books that are over 100 years old or close. Now I look back at it and go, oh my God, that's almost 100 years ago. When I had this book when I was a kid, or I got this book, you know. But anyhow, you can read those books and then read a more modern book on that same animal and then compare those notes. Well, geez, okay, before technology, this is what they did. And that teaches you a lot too, because there's a lot of home remedies you can do or home things you can do to keep an animal healthy that will save you a lot of money. But because we're all in this throwaway society and, you know, buy. Well, I saw it, you know, like I always use like with fish, you know, you go to the pet store and buy pH up. And it's like, oh yeah, pH up to keep my pH up in my tank, it's important, and I'm going to spend $2.99 for this little vial of it, little tube of it, and I can buy a box of baking soda, which is the exact same thing, for 29 cents. You know, so they're both bisodium carbonate. But because it's packaged, it says pH up for fish, blah, 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 you're going to say, oh, this is different than that. No, it's the same thing. And so that's why I always say, read the old books, read the new books, and ask questions. Don't be afraid. I mean, again, social media is terrible because you go into these groups and they just, a lot of people berate you, and, you know, because you're asking a question that it's a newbie question or a beginner question, like you should know. That's why you're asking the question you don't know. And so it's okay to ask questions, but make sure it's a reputable source, and just kind of disregard the negative people, because, you know, some people are just asshats personally. And, you know, do we say it before video about power?
Yes.
Knowledge is power. And I said, yeah, it's only power if you can share it. You keep it all, you know, I could have all the information in my head and say, you know what, screw you, I'm not sharing with anybody. So I look better. But the truth is, that's not power.
Makes you a jerk.
Yeah, it makes you a jerk. You know, sharing that knowledge with people and helping people, that's where the power comes in. And that's what I try to do. So people, you know, message me all the time. I mean, my phone goes off all night long. I shut it off, and I, you know, have to make sure it's off when I'm doing things like this or I'm in bed, because, you know, 3 in the morning, my phone, yeah, it's going off with people sending me questions, because some of you guys don't sleep, apparently. I don't know. I'm old. I go to bed at a reasonable time, get up early. But, yeah, so I mean, you know, and if you ask somebody a question and they say they don't know, that's okay too. You don't have to know everything. Like with me, I often say I don't know, but let me look it up or let me find out, because I know a lot of reputable sources or people that I would count on are knowledgeable, who might know better than I, and I'll go to them and then get back to you, because, you know, I mean, you asked me a question and now I just learned something.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way I look at it. Is if I don't know, I'm going to find out, because that's a good question. You know, if I don't know it, maybe I should.
Maybe you should. Yeah.
So, you know, and I'll find that answer for you. I do that with insects all day long. I get up in the morning, get my coffee, and the first 20 questions are, I found this bug in my house, what is it? And I identify them.
And yeah, that's a good thing. Like you were saying, a lot of times I'll have people ask me a question, and it's like, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know, but I know a bunch of other breeders that have been doing this for years, so let me shoot it out into the group chat that I'm in with them.
I really dislike people who think they know it all. Because it's annoying to people like me who do know. Just kidding. You think you know it all, because you don't. You can't. You can't.
It makes you close-minded.
Yeah, exactly. And in the long run, the animal suffers, is what it comes down to. So, yeah, it's okay not to know, but it's okay to learn, too. I mean, you know, no matter how old you should be learning something new every day anyhow. It doesn't matter what it is, you know.
Yeah, and on a different thing, we'll try to kind of close this up, because we've been doing this for a little while, and I don't want to take too much of your time today. Let's talk a little bit about Maine, like we were started to a little bit earlier. And each state's the same way, I'm sure. Every state has regulations. Well, Maine, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got the unrestricted list.
Oh, the apples are in the back of my van.
I'll get them tomorrow.
Okay.
You've got the unrestricted list, which is fairly easy to find if you know you have to look for an unrestricted list.
Yes.
I just type in, I still do my research to see what I can keep in Maine. I can be looking online at other breeders and see they're breeding something and go, ooh, that's cool. I'm going to do my research on it and because I want it.
Yeah.
But the first thing I do is pull that unrestricted list up to see if I can even keep it. Because why should I waste 3 weeks doing research on it if, come to find out, I can't even have it in Maine?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of things you can have, you just have to go through the proper channels, but again, will they give you the permit?
Yeah. So we have the permit, there's the permitting system, and it's tiered, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, first, tier 1, 2, and then unrestricted. And if it's not on any of those, if it's not on tier 1 or 2 or unrestricted, then it's kind of like a null and void, like you can't have it from what I can tell. Or it needs to be brought up and placed into a system. You have to apply for it, saying, "Listen, we want to, add this to the list." One of them, and determine. And if you're not certain, Maine is kind of weird because most states have a restricted list saying you can't have, we'll say, large constrictors, crocodilian, venomous, native, endangered. It's kind of a simple, and so so there's like 10 large constrictors. You can't have these. Anything else you can. Crocodilian, without permit you can't have them, and so it's kind of set up to make it as simple as possible because there's so many animals in the world, and how do you keep track of them all? And that's what Maine's trying to do, is keep track of them all.
Maine's a little bit backwards.
We do it backwards, we do it backwards and say this is what you can have. We have 18 pages of an unrestricted list, which equals to about 60,000 animals, but you got to know what they are and not know what they are and their Latin name, and our wardens don't know, our biologists don't know, the state doesn't know. They often ask me, even if it's legal in another state, they'll message me, hey, just question, is this turtle legal in New Hampshire? It's like, yes. And so we kind of do things really weird here. The tier system is designed that tier 1 was set up for people who have loads of experience. Like someone like me, I can do tier 1 animals as long as I have the proper enclosures and stuff like that. And then tier 2 is animals that have special requirements, but an average person could get, like technically a sulcata taurus can be a tier 2 animal. They're saying that, hey, listen, this thing lives 150 years, and we really need, and of course each tier has certain requirements you have to meet with education, training, liability insurance, enclosure, inspections. So it's not easy to get, but it's not impossible to get.
Well, it's like with